Good morning, children. Hope you all are in high spirit and in good health. Now, every one of us must be hoping and praying that after summer vacations, our school must be opening. But Almighty has some different plans, right? Now, let's get back to our virtual learning. Today, in this session, we are going to start with history first chapter, that is, tracing changes through the 1,000 years. History, as you learnt last year, is the study of the human past. To make and understand history easier, it is divided into three periods: ancient, medieval, and modern. Last year, you learned the ancient period of human history. This year, you will explore the history of medieval India. The word medieval comes from the Latin words medius and avium, which means middle age. Therefore, when a period is called medieval, it means that the period which is in the middle of human history. The medieval period in Indian history is taken to extend from 700 to 1700 CE. That is, when the Mughal Empire started breaking up and the British began establishing their power in India. The medieval period in India is further divided into early medieval period, that is 700 to 1200 CE, and the later medieval period, that is 1200 to 1700 CE, and the modern period of Indian history stretches from 1700 CE to date. I hope you remembered how to look at time and dates in history. Let's revise it first. In history, it is very important to learn how to tell the dates of significant events. Usually, historians count the years forwards or backwards from the year in which Jesus Christ is believed to have been born. The period before the birth of Christ is known as BC, that is, before Christ, and the period after that is known as AD, that is Anno Domini, which is originated from Latin word meaning in the year of our Lord. Now look at the timeline carefully. Timeline means it is a scale where events are placed according to their occurrence. It is very important to find recentness of the events. If you look at the timeline carefully, in the case of AD, the larger the year, the recent the event, while in case of BC, smaller the year, the most recent is the event. Remember, while writing, AD is written before the year. For example, King Akbar died in AD 1605, and while speaking, it is added after the year. Example, King Akbar died in 1605 AD. And also remember, BC always written after the year. In some countries, BCE, that is before Common Era, is used instead of BC, and CE, that is Common Era, is used instead of AD. And when a year does not have BC or AD attached to it, then it refers to the time after the birth of Christ, that is AD. For example, 1763, 2018, 2020, etc. Now let's start with the chapter now. That is tracing changes through the 1,000 years, which means we are going to discover the changes which occurred through the 1,000 years. Children, you must be aware about the term cartographer. Cartographer is a person who makes map. Maps are the important source through which we can trace to the historical changes. Over a period of time, the map of an area made by a person differs significantly from that made by another person. This is because of the changes in the information about the region. For example, look at this map. This map was made in 1154 CE by Arab geographer Al-Idrisi. This is a small section of the detailed map of India prepared by him. In this section, Indian subcontinent was shown. In this map, South India is where we would expect to find North India. And see, Sri Lanka is at the top. Here places are marked in Arabic language like Kannauj in Uttar Pradesh. Now look at this second map. It was made by French cartographer. This section also showing the details of Indian subcontinent. But this map is familiar to us because it is more or less similar to the map of India which we are using present day. See, both the maps are quite different from each other, even though they represent the same area. Another reason for difference in the maps of two distinct periods is the difference in the science of cartography. It means when any document or maps or texts from the past are read by historians, they have to keep in mind the differences in the historical backgrounds in which the information about the past was produced. Hence, maps and documents cannot be interpreted in absolute and independent terms. For example, the word Kannauj, we use the letter K, but in map 1, they spelled it with Q. Both maps are correct in different contexts. Historians are very careful regarding the old and new terminology while studying the past. Historical records exist in variety of languages which have been changed over the years. Let's find more about them. For example, the term Hindustan. Today this term refers to India, but this term Hindustan meaning was different when it was used by Minhaji Siraj in 13th century who wrote in Persian. By Hindustan he meant the areas of Punjab, Haryana and the land between the rivers the Ganga and the Yamuna. So the word Hindustan confined particularly this region only, and this term never included South India in it. But you will find out that the same term Hindustan was used in the 16th century by Babur. Babur actually he was the founder of the Mughal Empire and the first emperor of the Mughal dynasty in the Indian subcontinent. So he used the term Hindustan to describe the geography of the subcontinent. And in the 14th century, poet Amir Khusro also used the word Hind to describe the cultural identity of the country. Historians have to be very careful about the terms they use because they meant different things in the past. Take another example, the term foreigner. It is used today to mean someone who is not Indian, but in medieval period a foreigner was any stranger in the village. For example, a person coming from the other village to their village of the same country is called a foreigner. As in the previous class, we have studied various sources to study the history like inscriptions, manuscripts and excavations. This year also we will study the medieval period through coins, inscriptions, architecture and monuments and textual records. If we talk about coins, it helps us to understand the economic condition of a kingdom. They were usually issued by the ruler of a kingdom. These coins helps historians to clarify any doubts they have about dates and events that mentioned in the books. Other important sources, inscription. They are written records engraved on stones, pillars, on the walls of temples and monuments. They provide us the names of the rulers, some major events, etc. Several copper plates inscriptions related to the medieval period have been found in South India. Other important sources, monument building. They provide us the information about the period during which they were constructed. Temples, tombs, stupas, palaces, and forts tell us not only the religious practices but also about the socio-economic condition of that time. Like forts of Delhi, Agra, Jodhpur give an insight into the architectural style of that period. Next is manuscript. Manuscripts are the handwritten records. They were collected by wealthy people, rulers, monasteries, and temples. They were placed in libraries and archives. Archive means a place where documents and manuscripts are stored. As there was no printing press during medieval periods, scribes used to copy down the manuscripts. So, who are scribes? These are those professionals who used to copy down the manuscripts. There is one drawback of such copying. Sometimes it was difficult to recognize the original script, as scribes used their own way to interpreting the facts. Consequently, their differences were found in the copies written by different scribes, as all the copies were handwritten. So, it is one of the most difficult tasks for historians to recognize which was the original one. For historians, the studying and knowing about these 1,000 years, that is from around 700 to 1700 CE, has been a huge challenge. Why it is a huge challenge for historians? Because in the medieval period, there are many changes or many new things are discovered, many new castes are emerged, changes in the political scenario, changes in the kingdomship. So all these things which occurred during this period of 1,000 years, that is the reason why historians considered this period as a huge challenge because of the various development and changes. So let's see what are the major changes or invention occurred. Persian wheel of invention for agriculture. It made the agriculture more profitable and more comfortable for the farmers. The second major discovery is spinning wheel in weaving. So weaving of the clothes also become very comfortable and easy with the discovery of spinning wheel. And the third uses of firearms in combat or in fighting. The subcontinent also saw the new foods like potatoes, corn, chilies, tea, coffee. It was a period of great change and mobility also. Among the social groups, there are various new social groups that were formed like Rajputs, Ahams, Marathas, Kayas, Jats and Sikhs. Rajputs were a group of people who became popular in this time. The name Rajput is derived from the word Rajputra, which means son of the ruler. The term was applied generally to a group of warriors during the period between 8th and the 14th century. These small group who gained momentum in this period. Now, even if you want to understand the medieval period in India, we can broadly say there were three phases. First was Hinduism or the phase of Hindus, then the phase of Muslim dynasty or Muslim rulers, and finally the advent of the Britishers in India. This period also witnessed a gradual clearing of forests and extension of agriculture. It caused changes in people's habitat which forced many forest dwellers to migrate to other places. As society became more complex and more differentiated, people were grouped into jatis or subcastes, and jatis were actually the subcastes which were grouped on the basis of economic and social status. The work of jatis was regulated by an assembly of elders known as the Jatis Panchayat in some areas. The jatis were required to follow the rules of their villages, which were governed by a chieftain. Chieftain means the head or a leader. The Indian subcontinent was divided into several regions which were ruled by empires of different dynasties. By 700 CE, several regions developed their distinct geographical dimensions and cultural characteristics. Before I explain these regions and empire, let me introduce one new term here, that is Prashastis. So Prashastis are special kind of inscriptions which means in praise of. They were composed by learned Brahmins in praise of rulers, which may not be literally true, but they tell us how rulers of that time wanted to illustrate themselves. In one of such Sanskrit Prashasti praising the Delhi Sultan Ghiasuddin Balban. He was the ninth Sultan of Mamluk dynasty of Delhi. Here Mamluk means slave dynasty or Ghulam dynasty. This dynasty was established in northern India by Qutbuddin Aibak. He was a Turkish slave. You will study about this in your higher classes. So come back to Delhi Sultan Ghiasuddin Balban. Through Prashastis, we came to know that he was a ruler of vast empire that stretched from Bengal in the east to Ghazni in Afghanistan in the west. Many other dynasties like Cholas, Khiljis, Tughlaqs, and Mughals extended their empires as pan-regions. Pan-regional rule applies to the trend of extending the empire to the region beyond one's own state. Pan-regional empire means that the empire crossing its regions and spreading over several other regions. Most of the regions across the subcontinents were left with legacies of the big and small states that had ruled over them. With the decline of the Mughal Empire in the 18th century, many regional states emerged. In this period of time when we are exploring all the changes which happened in the medieval period, we can see many major changes and development in the religion also. It was mainly seen in Hinduism. Every person is deeply associated with God and they all believed in some superpowers. The worship of new deities, the construction of temples, the growing importance of Brahmins, the priests as dominant groups in society were some major developments. The idea of bhakti also emerged. It was also seen in Muslims. Merchants and migrants brought the new teachings of Quran, the holy book of the Muslims, and a class of patrons emerged. Here patron means a person who supports with money efforts to an artist, writer or a learned man. They were the rulers who provided shelter and protection to the ulemas. Ulemas are the Muslim scholars who are recognized as having specialist knowledge of Islamic sacred law and theology. Muslims were divided into two groups, Shia and Sunni. Shia Muslims believed in Prophet Muhammad's authority, while Sunnis accepted the authority of the early leaders, Khalifas. They also interpreted this to make people understand the unconditional love of Allah. So, these new changes were traced during this 1000 period. So, in this period, both old and new religions emerged. With this, we have finished the chapter, explanation of this chapter. So, read the chapter from the PDF file or from your textbook. Watch this video for better understanding. Enjoy learning, stay home and stay safe. God bless you all.